So the new adidas Trionda World Cup ball is here, and it's a great football. But it's also 150 euros, which no matter how you twist and turn it, is a lot of money for a football. But the good thing is that Adidas have you covered. So apart from the top-end pro version, you also have the 60 euro competition, there's the 40 euro league, and finally the 25 euro club version. And in today's video, I'm going to compare all of them, looking at the tech, the feel, and the performance, to hopefully help you decide which of them you should buy on unisportstore.com. So that was kind of weird, but let's get going. First and most important differences lies in the construction. And I know that the three most expensive balls, they kind of look alike, especially from afar, but the truth is that actually they're made in very different ways. And with that said, what's interesting is that the competition and the pro are made with the same foam. It's called EPDM. And it's a great foam for many different reasons. One is that it's really durable, another is that it has great shape retention, plus it has a really high UV resistance, which is great because you're probably going to use these outside a lot. Now, the leak here is made with a foam called TPE, which is nice because it's a little bit cheaper than the EPDM foam, and also it's a lot more flexible and really easy to work with. But on the other hand, it's not as durable and doesn't have the same UV resistance as the EPDM. The glove is made with a foam called EVA, which is really nice and soft, but then again, it doesn't have the same rebound capabilities as the more expensive balls have. So the foam is different. And the funny thing is that the foam also matters a lot when it comes to the feel of the ball. So these two having the same that's kind of nice. But the reason that the three most expensive balls kind of look alike, at least from afar, is that they all share this, in my book, really beautiful full windmill-shaped panel design here, but also that they all have grooves on the panels themselves. Now, in very broad terms, the grooves here go in and moderate the airflow around the ball, basically ensuring that it has lower drag behind it, allowing the ball to travel faster and with a more predictable flight characteristic. On the Pro, you have 3 grooves per panel. On the competition, you have 2, on the league, you have 1, and then on the club, well, you have grooves that are kind of scattered randomly all over. That's not the case, but you don't have as many grooves on the club. So on the Pro and the competition, the panels have been thermal bonded together. That means that they've been glued together and then for the glue to heat up, so they stick together. On the league here, they've been laminated, which means that they've been put together and then been kind of covered and filled up with adhesive. And you can actually kind of see the glue in the little grooves here themselves. But it is what it is. If it works, it works. Now on the club, the panels have been machine stitched together, like on a classic football. Now, on the inside of the balls, you also have the bladder and the carcass. And obviously, they're also different, but that's a very technical and a very nerdy thing to talk about. So what you need to know is that the carcass and the bladder inside the Pro, they're the most advanced, they're the most fine-tuned. And then as the balls get cheaper, the carcass and the bladder become more simple and a little bit more standard. But the thing is that when you get the balls in hand, they're actually all trying to mimic the look and feel of the Pro as much as possible. And some of them, well, the competition does a really good job at that. And I mean, having the same panel design and the grooves and using the same EPDM foam already goes a long way. But what's also cool is that you have the same top polyurethane layer, ish. The one on the Pro is a little bit nicer, but it's more or less the same. And then you also have this slightly gritty micro texturing all over the upper, which on the Pro you have the micro texturing here that's designed to use all the little icons that we see on the ball, so the star, the maple leaf, and the eagle, whereas on the competition it's this slightly dotted pattern that's spread all over the ball, which, while not identical, gives you bazooka vibes. So that's always cool. Now on the league, you also have a micro texturing. It's a wavy pattern, which I guess is cool. Onda means wave, so nice. But honestly, it's a little bit smoother than I expected it to be, and it doesn't add all that much grip. On the club, you have a completely smooth TPU top layer. It's a little bit sticky, but there's not much micro texturing to it at all. And while you have this debossed groove to make it look as if you have that windmill-shaped panel, it's just a pentagon. So it is what it is. But the competition really does a good job at mimicking the Pro, to be fair, especially for the price. But of course, one thing is how the balls feel in hand. What really matters is how they feel when you get them on the pitch and you start playing. And I gotta be honest here, the difference between the price points is there. and you can feel that the Pro is the more expensive ball. Now, like I said in my review, the Trionda Pro here it's a really good football, to be fair. It has this wonderful balance between having this initial slightly cushioned sensation, which then quickly transitions into a slightly more responsive, solid feel that just gives you a slightly more speedy and really fun vibe. And it's just a very cool feeling when you play with the ball, making it feel easy to just control and touch. But also once you get the hang of it and you kind of unlock that speed, you can make it feel a lot more fun and wild. It's not unpredictable, but you can just make it a little bit more playful when you really hit it right. So touching, shooting, it feels great. And still, it has that very reliable flight pattern to it as well. And in my book, this is one of the 3 best balls on the market right now. It's great football. It's also expensive. And then there is the competition, which actually also feels somewhat like the Pro. It's as if Adidas took the same blueprint, the same feel, and then they just dialed everything down a notch. Meaning that on the competition here, the foam, it feels a little bit thinner, it feels a little bit firmer, so it doesn't have that quite the same of that initial cushion feel. Also, of course, the power transfer, while admittedly still really good, it's just not as snappy as it is on the Pro. And somehow I also feel that the competition, it feels ever so slightly more lively. I wouldn't call it unpredictable, although it is, that's a bad word, but it just feels as if it takes a little less to kind of unlock that slightly more wild, crazy movement than it does in the Pro. It's still a relatively reliable football, but somehow it makes me think of the characteristics that you got in the Brazuca from 2014. If you remember that, it was a really reliable football most of the time, but if you hit it right, with the right technique and with the right speed, you could actually unlock that slightly wilder, more crazy partying side to the ball as well. But to be fair, Trionda competition is a great football, especially at 60 euros. It feels like it's, I'm just gonna say a number, 80% of what the Pro is, but at just 40% of the price of the Pro, that's actually a really good deal. And if you want the best value for money, this is the ball to buy. So, wicked, I mean. Kudos to Adidas for that value for money. And if we follow the same logic, looking at the league that's 40 euros, it should deliver a lot of the same characteristics as what you get in the competition, right? Right? Well, it doesn't. And if I'm being honest here, the drop in quality from the competition to the league is significant. And yes, some of the characteristics are there, but you know, the foam just feels more solid and a bit harder as you strike it, and yet it just feels as if it absorbs a lot of the power coming from my foot to make it feel, I wouldn't call it lazy, that's a bad word, but it's just not nowhere near as responsive as the competition and especially as the Pro. Also, this smoother surface texture is not necessarily my cup of tea in terms of manipulating the ball when you dribble and strike it, but to be fair, it still has that, you know, the DNA of having this initially cushion feel and a somewhat nice responsiveness as you follow your foot through. It's just nowhere close to these two. Now, what's also really cool is that it has a big sweet spot because of the panel shape on each panel, just like the 2 bigger, older brother balls, whatever we want to call it, 2 more expensive balls, you know what I mean. So it's a solid football for the money. Absolutely it is, but if you're in this price range, I would probably personally take a look at the Select numero 10 or, you know, just pay up the extra 20 euros and get the competition. So is the Trionda League bad? No, I think it's like all right, but nothing more. But what I like is that I think it looks great and it looks a lot like the Pro, which I'm a big fan of. And then there is the Club, which, well, I'll be honest, it feels like a football at 25 euros. So the foam, yeah, it has this really soft and cushioned initial feel, but it's like it never transitions into anything else. And it just feels like very absorbing when it comes to all the power I put into the ball. And then of course, also given the panel shape and the fact that it's machine stitched, plus this really smooth, relatively, you know, like untextured surface, it doesn't really feel all that reliable, and not like something I would take into consideration for a serious football setting. Nor would I. It's all about the competition and the Pro in that regard for me. And I guess that if you just want the World Cup vibes, or you want a really durable football, and this seems relatively sturdy, I guess it's cool. But with that said, there are other balls from Adidas and from other brands that are also decent at this price point. So Nice, but I mean, this is where the party's at, in my book, if I'm being honest. Yeah. It's not terrible, but it's just not. It's there. But, of course, to the surprise of absolutely no one, the Pro is by far the best ball of the bunch in my book. Of course, if you can live with the price tag, that is the one I would go for. But with that said, for me, the competition, when it comes to value for money at least, is just really hard to beat. And it's up there, potentially even better than the Select Numero 10, which is amazing value for money. So it's a really good football at 60 euros. And I wouldn't think twice about bringing this to my team training and letting the boys play with that. So really solid. And the cool thing is that whether you prefer the Pro, the competition, the league, or the club, well, you can buy all of them and all of the other variations of Trionda in the link right there or in the description. But before you go and do that, tell me what you think of the new ball lineup. If you haven't seen the review of the Pro, we went to the Faroe Islands and it looks insane. Go and check that out. It's also on the screen right now. Don't forget to subscribe, like the video if you had a good time. And with those words, I'll be signing off. Cheerio. I did that again on purpose this time, but it was still weird, so bye-bye.